Okay, let me ask you this. What if one of the most iconic paintings in art history had spent most of its life hiding in bank vaults and attics instead of hanging in a museum? That's the wild story of Van Gogh's Tarascon Stagecoach, a masterpiece that's finally getting its moment in the spotlight after a century of absurd twists. But here's what really fascinates me. This painting isn't just a work of art, it's a time capsule of Van Gogh's genius, his struggles, and the weird, chaotic way art survives through time. Let me break this down. First off, the Tarascon Stagecoach isn't just some random landscape. Painted in 1888 during Van Gogh's feverish creative peak in Arles, this thing was a labor of exhaustion. Vincent literally wrote to his brother Theo saying he was knocked out from painting it. And that's not just a cute detail, it's proof of how he threw his entire being into his work. Think about that, a man so obsessed with capturing light and color that he collapses after painting a horse-drawn carriage. That's not art, it's a full-body sport. But here's the kicker, the colors we see today aren't the ones he saw. The pink walls. They've faded to ghostly white. Imagine if your favorite song lost half its notes over time. What we're looking at now is a shadow of Van Gogh's original vision. Does that make it less special? Personally, I think it adds layers of tragedy to it. The painting itself is aging like a relic of its own subject, the fading past. Now, let's talk about the novel he was reading while painting this, Tartarin de Tarascon. On the surface, it's a satire about a blowhard from a small town. But Van Gogh, being the literary nerd he was, probably saw something deeper in it. The stagecoach in the painting? It's not just transportation, it's a character. Like the one in the book that speaks about its hard life. So was Van Gogh projecting his own exhaustion onto this carriage? Was he seeing himself as this tired, colorful vehicle getting left behind in a world moving toward railways? That's the kind of metaphorical layering that makes his work timeless. He didn't just paint what he saw, he painted how things felt. But the real mind-blowing part? The painting's journey after he finished it. Imagine being Medardo Rosso, an Italian sculptor in Paris, owning a Van Gogh, and then hiding it in your attic because your friends hated it. Can you even picture that? Nah, this Van Gogh's too wild, put it in the attic next to the broken lamp. Then it ends up in Uruguay of all places, literally the first Van Gogh to cross the Atlantic. Meanwhile, Europe is having a full-blown art revolution, and this masterpiece is chilling in a Montevideo bank vault. The absurdity of art's value being so tied to geography and politics. It's staggering. If that doesn't make you question how we assign importance to cultural objects, I don't know what would. And then there's Henry Pullman, the refrigeration mogul turned art savior. Buying a Van Gogh with a cash deal plus a Renoir and a Soutine? That's like trading a Picasso for a Tesla and a rare vinyl. But here's what I find fascinating, Pullman didn't hoard these works. He lent them to Princeton for decades, letting students and scholars live with them. His foundation's decision to finally donate them to LACMA, Brooklyn Museum, and MoMA isn't just philanthropy, it's a statement. Art shouldn't be locked in private collections, it should be part of the cultural bloodstream. But does this mean we should be celebrating the museums, or mourning the decades the public missed out? That's the paradox of private art ownership. So here's the bigger question this raises. Why do we care so much about where a painting physically is? The Tarascon Stagecoach has been to more countries and continents than most people in the 19th century could imagine. It survived wars, obscurity, and critics who thought it deserved the attic. And now it's touring New York and LA? What does that say about how we frame value in art? Personally, I think it's a reminder that art's power isn't just in the object itself, it's in the stories we attach to it. Every scratch, faded pigment, and ownership drama adds a new chapter. So when you see this painting in a museum, don't just admire the brushstrokes. Think about the horse-drawn coach, the attic exile, the transatlantic journey, and the guy who traded a Renoir for supper money. Because that's when art stops being static and starts feeling alive. What do you think? Should more masterpieces be pulled from private collections and put on public display? Let me know in the comments.